Welcome to Grounding Ascension, where we explore topics around activating and integrating our I am presence, coming back to our true selves. I am your host, Celeste Glus. All right, welcome back to another episode of Grounding Ascension, and I'm really excited for today. I have a special host with me. Her name is Linda Hamilton, and I brought her on specifically because there's going to be a really exciting workshop coming up in October all about Amrita. So the conversation today is going to be about the sexual force, about Amrita, about how this is so important for women to first understand and commune with, and then to just really open up an avenue to explore within our lives and what this could look like for us. So I'm really excited for our conversation today. Let's go ahead and just get started. Linda, I think it'd be great to just give an intro on your background with this sort of work.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Celeste. So, okay, first, I think I just want to start with defining what Amrita is. It is the Sanskrit word for female ejaculation. So, obviously, this is a sexuality thing, it's an orgasm thing. And it's really shrouded in a lot of mystery, this whole topic of female ejaculation. And it's just not something that's talked about. And so many people are really unaware that it even exists. And the truth is that it does exist and that every woman is physically capable of this phenomenon. And this is why, to me, it's so important to really start talking about it with everybody, primarily with women. How I first came into exploring this topic was through my work with pregnant women. So I've been working with pregnant women with their birth experience and breastfeeding and all things pregnancy and baby for quite some time now. And over the years, it became really apparent to me that our sexuality is a big key in our birthing. All of the same as far as anatomy, physiology, chemicals, hormones, everything is the same in the state of orgasm as it is in a laboring and birthing state. So I began teaching more about the orgasm as a way to prepare women for their childbirth experiences. During that time, I started learning more about female ejaculation and Amrita, and I realized that there was a whole, like it was so much bigger even than just the orgasm and sexuality. That there was a huge body of knowledge and experience that most women that I knew were not even aware of. So I began researching it more and just doing everything I could and experiencing it myself as well. And I found that it really changed how I felt about myself and my life. And yeah, I would say a really big change for me all the way around, not just with my sexuality, but in all elements of my life. And as I started to research it more and started teaching it more, I started seeing the women that I was working with change in really dramatic ways, in life-changing ways. And as the years went by, I realized that that was not accidental, that this phenomenon of Amrita and really, really going deep and into understanding our nature and what we're naturally capable of, that had a ripple effect in a really profound way. So yeah, so I've been teaching this for several years now. I've never done it online, and I've had many people ask me to do this online. So yeah, I'm really excited to be offering this online for the first time. And thank you, Celeste, for having the platform to do that.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm so excited to hear so much more about it. I love that you mentioned, because I recently spoke about igniting our true sexual force and understanding that, well, first, you're very well aware that sex has been portrayed in a very specific two-dimensional way to society, right? So we're boxed in this idea of this is what sex is and this is what the sexual energy is in your life and in your body, and that's it. And the first thing that you mentioned, which I loved, is there's a connection between sexuality and birthing and orgasm. And what came to my mind is being the creator of your life and just living from a place of pleasure, not from this two-dimensional place of this is where pleasure comes from, in a place of sex that I've been told. Instead, understanding that there's this flow of intelligence in our life that goes from the orgasm into living, into birthing, whether it's a child or birthing in its different states of consciousness, right? Um, do you have anything to say in that regard, in regards to, and like, I think you mentioned it when you said women started to change. It's like, this is not just about the sexual act, right? This is about a way of life.
Yeah, totally. And it really begins with how we view ourselves. I think that's a big part of it. And yes, you're right. We are living in a time of history where we have been conditioned within a certain system that has, especially now, with all the media that we have access to, and when I was growing up, it was movies and television, things like that. And it's also, sex is not something that's really talked about or discussed. So we get our information from these outside sources, and when I see what's out there now, especially on the internet, it's just like, it's horrifying to me to think that there are so many people that are believing that this is the extent of what sex is. So yeah, I think it's important to first understand that there are so many things that we're not aware of, that we haven't been taught, it's not discussed in our culture. And so being able to go to a place of discovering our real, true essence of who we are. And then that's where the ripple effect happens, because at such a profound level, when we can discover, when we do make these discoveries of what we're capable of, I think that opens up, it's a key that opens up so many other things, like, okay, well, if this existed all the time and I never knew about it and I never knew anybody else that knew about it, what else is there? What else is out there? But then at the same time, there's so many levels to this. At the same time, there is, and honestly, I can't even fully explain it either, but it's something that it's at such a deep, on such a deep core, essential level that does open other things up. Um, so, and how we relate to the men, for example, how we relate to each other. I feel like right now, especially, that we are living in this time where the women absolutely need to find their power, find their true essence, and that it's quite urgent. as well that we discover this. So I was just talking to some friends of mine today, and we were talking about this issue about what do we as women need to do right now, knowing what's happening in the world, and such a critical time it seems in history. What are we to do? And it made me. I remembered. A time in my life when my kids, so I have 7 kids, and this was a time when 3 of my boys were in their late teens, early 20s, and they used to have parties at my house, all the time. And I had smaller children and even babies at some of those times. So I would usually go to bed quite early, and then I'd wake up in the morning and come downstairs and see just the craziness of my house, how dirty it was, how messy it was, random kids sleeping on the floor, sleeping on the couch, and just absolute mayhem. And, there were a few times I just quietly cleaned up around them, but I came down one morning and I made a decision to wake everybody up loudly. Okay, everybody get up. This house is a mess. I know you had a great time last night, and that's wonderful, but come on, everybody up. We're cleaning this up. Here's a garbage bag, fill it. You wash the dishes. And I gave them all jobs. But I feel like that's where we are right now in history, where this maternal feminine force needs to just speak up and say, okay, look, this is a mess. Let's clean it up. Let's do what we need to do. And be the mother, take charge. And okay, so if that's the case, how do we get to that place where we find our voices, where we find the courage to speak up and command, what's the word I'm looking for right now? To command a peaceful environment, to command order, and to be able to get to that place, where do we start? And I feel like the strongest things we have as women are giving birth on our own terms and our sexuality, because it is very complex. It's very intense. It's very powerful. And yet, for whatever reason, it's been suppressed. This information, this knowledge, this experience has been suppressed for probably a very long time. And no wonder we feel weak in our lives. No wonder the world is the way that it is right now. The women have been subjugated at such a level that we don't even know what to say. We don't even know how to feel. It's such a big issue. Where do we start? So I feel like, at least we can start here. And I do have a hunch that it's a very powerful place to start. Let's just start with ourselves. Let's realize that our sexuality is not connected to a partner or to a man like we've been taught and led to believe. We have this nature about ourselves that is incredible, and it feels amazing, and it's like it can be on a level of, like ceremony and a rite of passage. For sure, birth, especially birth on your own terms, is a full-on rite of passage, one that we don't typically experience anymore, but that we can. I do believe that it's very difficult to do that in a medical setting. This is why home birth is becoming more and more popular, is because we have seen now the power inherent in a birth, and that by subjugating ourselves to people of authority, that we give our power away in a very intense experience. But what I've seen for myself, I had my first 4 children in the hospital, and then I had my last 3 at home. And I've been working with women in their pregnancies and childbirth for a very long time. So I've seen it for them too, that home birth does allow the environment to really, truly sense that rite of passage that we go through. But I've also seen, and especially with myself again, and with the women I've worked with over the years, that discovering and practicing the Amrita is also a rite of passage. So if we think about what a rite of passage looks like, I might think of the first thing that comes to my mind would be, like a 13-year-old boy who is now introduced to the tribe as a man now, and he's sent off to the wilderness for a week to survive, and different things like that. It's a life-changing thing. Well, you could break it down on a very superficial level and say, well, okay, how is that? What does that really teach him, or what knowledge is he going to have by having this experience? And what the answer is of course, it's such an intense experience that it changes who they are, and they're able to go to the next level of evolution, really. And so this phenomenon of rite of passage has really been eliminated too in our modern culture. So yeah, that's how I see both birth and the orgasm. A true full orgasm. This is the other thing that we will be talking about in the workshop, that we've come to believe that an orgasm is this, and it fits, like you said, into a tiny little box. And with the discovery of Amrita, we see that no, it's very limitless space that is so much broader, so much deeper, so much bigger, so much more spiritual sometimes. And yeah, experiencing it and practicing it changes who we are. And so yeah, I think it's a starting point to the end game, to the bigger picture. I think it's a really good place to start, and it's fun. And we don't need a man, we don't need a partner. And this is part of the conversation I just had with my friends too. So there are 4 other women sitting there, and they're, everybody said, yes, I have better orgasms when I'm not with my partner or any other partner. I have the best when I'm by myself. So this is another thing that I think needs to be talked about a lot more. And I know a lot of people have grown up in a social structure and a religious structure where it's a sin. It's a full-on sin to touch yourself and to get any pleasure out of that. So yeah, that needs to change.
Yeah, this opens up so many deep conversations about our human psyche, right? It's like, again, it's going
Yeah,
so much further past what sexuality has been sold as to be, and realizing that, like you said, it's been stripped away from us in a very meticulous and very specific way, right? And we can see why. Many of us can see why. And so specifically, and this is not ever a conversation about men against women, but specifically stripping away the sexual force of the woman and her ability to connect to herself. And even, like you said, making it a rite of passage between you and you. I feel chills. I started crying while you were speaking, because I realized how
no,
so necessary at this time for women to wake up. And like you said, it's the mama bear. It's, you wake up and you speak up, whether it's to your children or to your partner or to yourself, most importantly, right? It's like, women, wake up to the wisdom of your
yeah,
body, wake up to the wisdom of the sexual force within you, and realize the potential that it has to completely transform the person that you think you are. It's mind blowing, and this is the reason why I wanted to have this conversation, to show to show the possibility that is on the horizon when we open ourselves up to something like this, to this kind of potential that has been hidden.
yeah, beautiful. Yeah, it really is very mysterious because nobody knows what's going to happen at this point. And there's a lot of people that are very scared, a lot of people that are very angry. There's, it's mayhem. It's coming downstairs the morning after the party. It's just out of control at this point. So I have hope. I've seen it over the years now. I'll be 56 in a few weeks. So I've seen a lot of things change in that short amount of time. And as far as women um, waking up and understanding more and wanting more and not being willing to put up with things anymore that maybe our mothers or grandmothers didn't have a choice whether they put up with it or not. But we're making that happen. We're making huge changes. And yeah, so I'm hopeful, and I am choosing to embrace the mystery of what's to come. And I love the parallel is that when we begin to explore the Amrita, that it is a full-on arena of mystery, of going to a place that we haven't been before, feeling things that we haven't felt before. And it's all safe, and it's all good, and it's all beautiful, and it feels amazing. And I do hope, as I know many of us do right now, that that is the future that we're looking towards, is one of where we feel safe and at peace and pleasure and connection.
Yeah, because if you give a human back those things, then we wouldn't be in this absolute rage, right? And depression and addictions. And one of the things that I'm seeing in my work is that there's such a deep connection between the repressed sexual energy in our bodies and our lives, whether that was through childhood experiences or whatever it is that we grew up with, and the addictions in our society, whether that's addiction to food or alcohol or sex or drugs or behavioral patterns, right? Addiction to working out, addiction, there's just so
Mm,
much subconscious manipulation because the sexual desire and the force has been put into a box and repressed and hidden and misunderstood, right? So it's like behind the box, behind the
yeah,
chain.
right.
And I'm seeing that there's a parallel in
Yeah,
our
full on.
and in the way that women are in relationship with their partners. There's like all this repressed anger and depression and frustration, and when you get down to the bottom of it, I'm seeing that it's just a lot of misunderstood and repressed sexual energy. Do you have anything to say about that?
Mm, yeah, I would totally agree with that. Um, yeah, I think what's happening too, this frustration is that the women aren't going along with it anymore. I think that actually has to account for a lot of the disruption that we're seeing in the world right now, is that women are just saying at some level, I don't want this anymore. I just don't want it to be like this anymore. And okay, so then this change of understanding how much we've been repressed at such a profound level, this is, yeah, for sure, it's going to be manifested in many other ways. I do just want to like slip in a little bit of information too here, because I just like to whenever I can about when we're pregnant and carrying a child, that we have so much power in the imprints of what that baby is receiving in utero, and that we don't fully understand. So how I wanted to relate this to is that I think we have generations now of people that have been conceived and imprinted in utero in an environment where they did not feel safe. And I'm just feeling this more and more, that this is potentially the root of everything. And what you say, the addiction, the anger, all of it, is we never had a chance to feel safe. And I think it's a very primal need So it manifests in so many different ways, and things that we're seeing in the world right now. So I encourage all of my clients when they're pregnant to understand that this is a chance for you to imprint these very deep messages to your baby that they are safe. Now, how to do that is to okay, I just saw that my battery's about to die. So I need to plug my laptop in. Sorry about that.
No worries. Real life.
Yeah, it is.
And you and
And so many cords here. So okay, so this safety issue, when we don't get that, how does that impact our lives? And okay, I'm plugged in now. So here's an opportunity in coming back to the orgasm world, that this is a time to train ourselves and to go back to that. And I'm really excited about this upcoming workshop in October, because one thing I'm adding in that I've never been able to do because they've always been live workshops is a breathwork session with a good friend of mine who's just a master at this. And it's amazing the things that I have overcome, accepted, and learned through doing breathwork sessions with her. And so we're going to have this breathwork session where I'll ask everybody to go to a very safe place, whether that's your own bedroom or somewhere where you can lock the doors, where you know you're not going to be interrupted, and to just be with yourself. And we'll have a guided meditation or a guided breathwork session, and then with Meg, and then I will also give, I say meditation because that's kind of how I feel it is, but it's also not. It's more I don't even know what to call it, but it's going to be a session where I will guide everybody into a place of reconnecting on a very deep level with themselves, emotionally and physically. And the whole idea behind it is to be able to know that you're in a safe place. Incidentally, it's for every mammal, not just humans, but for every mammal, it's an imperative thing that that mammal feels safe in order to give birth in a healthy way. And you can talk to any farmer or any zoologist and they will tell you the same thing, that animals need to be left alone. They need to be in a safe place. And it's the same for humans. So when we can create an environment where we feel safe, that's when the real magic can happen. So yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to that sense of feeling I am safe.
yeah, that's deep. Yeah. And that safety allows you to explore.
That's the starting point. Yeah, when I can feel safe, then wow, look at all the things that can happen. And I remember speaking with a middle-aged to late middle-aged woman once who confided in me that she had never experienced an orgasm ever in her life. And when we talked a little bit more about it, that was one thing that she mentioned that and this was quite a few years ago, that I found really intriguing. That was her comment. She said, I don't think I ever felt safe enough to have an orgasm. And of course, she just assumed that she was only allowed to have an orgasm when she was with her husband. And she'd been married to the same man for over 50 years. That was the only forum that she was allowed to have an orgasm in, was with her husband, and that she never felt safe enough to have one. So when I asked her about, well, did you ever think about having one just on your own? She just laughed and laughed like, oh no, I would never. But yeah, so this is what we're dealing with now. But yeah, that feeling of safety is so important on so many levels. So at least we can start with this. This is a good starting point where we can explore our orgasm alone in a safe place, and it doesn't cost anything. Anybody can do it. It's very accessible and so, so powerful and fun.
Yeah, it sounds like we are literally rewriting the patterns of human ancestry just by doing this practice.
Yeah,
Can you speak a little bit
yeah,
on the difference between the typical orgasm that people might hear about and Rita specifically?
yeah. Okay, so let's just take what I think most of us perceive as what is an orgasm for a woman. And it's so interesting that so much of our reality has been male dominated. So um, when you see the movies, or I do not watch pornography. I think I started to watch one thing once and I didn't want to keep doing it, so I almost feel like I should, so I can speak more intelligently into this. But at the same time, I really just don't. So but what my suspicion is in that realm, as well as what we, the movies and the different things that we do see, is that um, it's almost been mapped out for us that this is how a woman has an orgasm. And it's very much like a man's orgasm. So that's a good starting point to realize that it's very different. In fact, a man, for example, a man will have an orgasm. There will be a time of arousal, and then that culminates and ends in an ejaculation and an orgasm. Women have a completely different experience. Now, when I say they have a completely different experience, what I'm talking about is what I feel is the natural way, the way we were, the way we are designed, of what that looks like, and it's very different from the man's orgasm. So for a woman, it's more like an orgasmic state of being, where we don't have this time of arousal and then it culminates to one few seconds time, and then that's the orgasm, and then we're done. And that's, okay, well, I'm just done. I had my orgasm. That's kind of how it is for the man. Like, something actually really does change in the brain, where after they have an orgasm, it's just like, it's very, very different, very, very quickly. And they're usually not going to want to really be into a lovemaking session anymore after that. Once they have an orgasm, that's it. Not to say every man is that way. I don't want to generalize, because there are some that are different. But even that, and I have spoken with a lot of men about this too, and they'll, for example, they might say, well, yeah, I like to cuddle. We'll stay together in bed for a little while and cuddle and talk, and that's nice. But it's different than, okay, well, do you want to keep the lovemaking session going immediately after you've had an orgasm and ejaculation? And I haven't met any man that has said yes. So, but women are very different. So let's take, for example, what most women understand as an orgasm is like a clitoral orgasm, and there's like a rush of blood, and there is like this peak, and like an explosive type feeling. But after that happens, it's almost like a precursor to wanting more and wanting to go to another level. It's part of it's part of the whole process, where this is where I'm explaining this as in a by saying it's an orgasmic state, where it's not one orgasm that women have and then that's it. It's like different levels, and that can be quite prolonged. That can go on for hours for a woman, where she does have what we would understand as a clitoral orgasm, but then there's more that she wants, and that can be, you know, all kinds of different things. So we've been had explained to us that there's clitoral orgasm, there's a vaginal orgasm, there's, you know, cervical orgasm, all these different orgasms, and it's just insane to me that this has become so confusing to everybody. So if there's one thing I really want to do, is just change the story on all of this. And okay, let's have women actually define, because again, most of our sexuality biologically and research information that we have was all created by men. So let's have all the women come together and pool our data and start telling the true story of what really happens when we are sexually aroused. So one way we can understand that is that how we have been led to believe that all these different orgasms, that it's really all about the clitoris, yet we don't understand, most of us anyway, that the clitoris is much bigger than what we believe it to be. Most people think it's just a very small part close to the urethra, and that this is the place. What the truth is that it's the whole organ, and it's actually much bigger, but most of it is on the inside and close to the vaginal walls. So when we talk about the G spot, which I like to refer to as the sacred spot, that is very closely connected to the clitoris. And so it's all really different sensations of the same area. And when we can understand that, it just helps to understand, well, how does the whole thing work? And this is where the Amrita comes into play, that the Amrita is part of the orgasm state of being. When a woman ejaculates, again, it's not like a man's. It's not like she'll have the ejaculation, she'll experience the Amrita, and then it's all over for her. It's done. She feels satisfied. Again, it's something that continues to build and build, and there can be a release of Amrita 1 minute, and then 5-10 minutes later, there's what you would feel as a clitoral orgasm, but then that just leads to another release of Amrita, and it can just go on like that in circles and cycles. And yeah, it's not one short event, I guess, is the bottom line of that. It's much more complex, much more different than what we've been led to believe. And you know, it makes sense, because when we think of the physiological nature of a woman's sex organs compared to a male's sex organs, they're very different. So it's easy for us to understand, okay, well, it can be different because this is obviously very different. So I can see that it could be different. Keep in mind too that part of the programming that we've had is in our sexuality is that our goal is to satisfy the man. It's very man-centered. And this is why, you know, so many women will fake an orgasm to make the guy feel good that he was good at that. So once we can feel safe enough to not do that anymore, and yes, be in connection with your partner, that's awesome. But you as a woman are a big part of that too. And being genuine and being real and feeling safe enough to really explore explore your sexuality on a deeper level.
Yeah, I love all of that. When you were saying the energetics, I guess you could say, of how the orgasm looks for each individual, right? Yeah, the man you would think of as linear, it's just up and down. Whereas the woman, it's like this Fibonacci swirl that always represents the womb of the woman, right? It's like it's just never ending. It grows
Yeah.
upon itself and it's unfolding, right? So I love that you mentioned that it's a state of being. Um, and you know, this whole thing, which I've read a lot about, where there is this pressure because of X, Y, and Z Hollywood media, the way we've grown up, that there's this show to put on specifically for women. And I think a lot of this about coming back to our sexuality, coming back to our empowerment, coming back to our true essence, I feel this conversation is more about than anything else. And feeling safe is that we get to be present with ourselves. We get to find out what feels good to our body and to our being. And that does require us to be in a place of safety and requires us to take off the show, right? To realize that this is first and foremost a sacred act of presence and exploration. And then that can be
Mm.
either done with ourselves or with a partner, but to really allow ourselves to get curious about what this can look like for us and then how it can affect our whole life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, I love
completely.
this.
Yeah, stepping into the mystery.
Yeah, and I have found also a big correlation with women being able to allow themselves to explore into this kind of work and and heal so many parts of their womb, whether physically, energetically, spiritually. There's so much happening with women, and again, we can say that there is, you know, this program or this need to control the womb of society, of the world, through whether it's surgery or
Mm.
birth control or the way that women give births, right? Like there's so many angles that um, are trying to control the actual womb. And I think that this energetically is causing a lot of disharmony, dis-ease, not wellness, unwellness, right, of the womb. And so the more that women are exposed to this, the more they allow themselves to explore, the more we see a rise of the self-healing of the womb space, whether physically, emotionally, spiritually. It's profound.
Yeah, for sure. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I love this. I
there's so much healing. It's
go for it.
okay. Um, yeah, I wanted to say that with this time that I've been teaching this workshop, there that is another element of it that I didn't mention before that is really very common and very deep. Um, you know, I've had women tell me that they take the workshop, they go home, they start doing the homework. Incidentally, in the workshop, I do give about a half of it of a step-by-step instruction method of how to achieve Amrita. So it's a very practical session as well. So I have had women come back to me later and say, so I started practicing this, and I all there's so many different reactions that women have had. One thing that's happened a lot is they get very sick, physically sick, in different ways. I've had women just become paralyzed, imagining their father right outside the door with a belt, getting ready to beat them. That what they were exploring was very taboo, prohibited, wrong. So it's really interesting the different responses that women have had as they go to explore this. And in time, so how I encourage them to continue with it is to first, yes, just keep doing it, understand that this is part of it, and but keep telling yourself, keep remembering that you are in a safe place. You are in a safe place, and these are not real threats. They're part of you, yes, but this is your chance to overcome that. And so the responses that I've received over the years, sometimes I got a message the other day. She said it was 3 years ago that I took your workshop, but it was just last weekend that I was finally able to really experience Amrita, that there was such a block for her all of those years. And in that same message, she said, so much has changed for me now that I was able to. I just feel different about myself. I feel healed on so many levels. So yeah, the healing, I think this is an amazing opportunity to heal things that we wouldn't necessarily really be able to tap into without going on such a deep level into this with our on a physical level, on an emotional level, on a spiritual level. That it's almost like a shortcut, I guess I want to say, a shortcut to healing some really deep things.
Yeah, talk about the definition of sexual healing, right? I mean, to use the force of life, sexual force, to be able to allow these things to just come up for us naturally. And when you say that one of the reactions of women is that they can get sick, do you think that this is like a detoxification of the body?
Mm. Well, yeah, I never thought about it that way, but sure. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I
Of
see
course,
that
that makes sense.
with deep detox through fasting or through any kind of detoxification, the first thing that the body does is, it pours out the toxins, and we think toxins are just chemicals or food. And in reality, the toxins behind emotions and history and ancestral lineage are so deep, right? Like the psychosomatics of our body, that when we begin to release that, we're releasing generational
Mm.
information. Imagine that's only normal for the body to first get sick and then be able to release so much, which is mind blowing.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Can you
Yeah,
some
all
other
makes sense.
Yeah, before we wrap up, can you share some other reactions that women have had? Because I know,
Yeah. Yeah, well, I guess the most common one that I've had is that women end up, so many of them, leaving their husbands and partners. It's uncanny.
that's a warning.
Oh, yeah. That's probably the most common reaction. And I would say to the point almost like of those that I'm able to stay in touch with that have attended my workshops, I would say like 30% within a year. And a lot of them will say, I've had several say, yes, I know for a fact that when I started really diving deep into the Amrita and practicing that was why. I know that was the catalyst. But I've had other women say, I don't know what happened, but it was, yeah, the time after I took the workshop that I woke up one day and realized that I didn't want to do this anymore. and that there was more for me, and that I was limiting myself on so many levels by remaining in this partnership. And I just didn't want to do it anymore. And it's funny because I it's usually a story like that. It's not typical that I hear that there was a lot of aggression or, a violent breakup. What I hear more from women was, I just realized I was done with that relationship. And, and we had talked about this before when you and I did a session before. I think that's one of the most powerful things that we can do as women right now, too, is realize that not only is it okay to be alone in life, but it can be amazing. And, I am not in a relationship right now. I've had many. I've been married twice, and again, I have 7 kids. And I am not in a relationship right now, and I do have a daughter. So I'm the quote unquote single mom right now. And that's another thing, what our culture says about a single mom, that's almost like the greatest fear that so many women have. Well, I can go through anything, I just don't want to be single mom. And then at a deeper level, I think so many women are just so afraid to be alone that that's a reflection on their worth and their value. And I think it's a huge message that I would like to get out to people, is that I can say for myself, at least I can tell my story and say that being alone, not being in a partnership, even being a single mother, I feel happier, more fulfilled in my life than I ever did before. And it's really nice. It's so nice. So once we can drop that fear of being alone, I mean, just that changes so much for us. So yeah, the typical story that I hear from these women is that just they realized that they didn't want that anymore. And when they didn't have that fear of being alone looming over them, okay, well, I don't really feel satisfied. I don't like how this relationship is. I feel, I have a hunch that there's something more. But what so many women do, I think, is that fear of being alone keeps them in a state of compromise, and not in a good way, where they compromise their soul even to continue to live a life that they're not thriving in. So yeah, once we can lose that fear, we can go in and out of relationships, I think, in a really healthy way. Where, look, I'm in partnership with you right now, not because I don't want to be alone, but because I feel like I thrive when I'm with you. And then when it comes to a time where you don't feel that anymore, okay, well, we had our time together and that was great, but I don't feel it anymore, that I want to continue this. And to be able to have that flexibility to of independence and being able to step in and out, as you feel that it should be, rather than feeling confined out of a place of fear.
Yeah, talk about true empowerment, right? When you come to a place of full acceptance and your cup is simply full. And that's just the power of love, the power of truth, you know? That's amazing. That is so
Mm.
beautiful. Yeah, I love it. Well, I cannot wait for this workshop. I am so excited. I think you gave us a ton of insight as to what it's like. It's very practical. The breath work sounds incredible. Yeah, it's amazing. Do you want to add any final thoughts before we close this up about anything? Amrita, the workshop, you, anything?
Um, yeah, I think more than anything, what I would like to say is that we are on the precipice of incredible change. and to understand that the power that we have as women, and we can see that power in the level that we are able to create life and grow life and sustain life with our own bodies, how huge that is. And we are quite literally the creators. So what I'd like to say today is let's just take that to another level now and see what we can create together. Yeah, it's time.
Oof, I love it. What a perfect way to close this episode off. I'm so excited and it's an honor to be doing this together. So thank you so much. That is so inspiring and empowering and so beautiful.
Thanks so much, Celeste. I'm just happy to have a platform to speak into this and to start rallying the women
Yes.
and coming together. And yeah, I'm excited to see what's going to happen in the next few years. I hope I see a big change within my lifetime. I think I will.
I think it's undoubted. It's
So
like
thank you.
has to happen. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation and I can't wait for the workshop. Okay? Until next time, everyone. See you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. See you. Thank you.